In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made some of the really cool effects in my music video that just premiered called Insomniac. If you haven't seen that music video, check out the link in the description below. This is a creative-based tutorial, and we're going to go way over the 7 minutes. Now, I've included a table of contents so you can easily jump around, or maybe you don't have time to check out everything in one viewing. Please like this video, share it, and don't forget to subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, and join my channel today for membership perks. It's just $4.99. Support us by getting your 7-minute AE merch at our online store, and check out our affiliates, Envato Elements and AE Juice. Links for all of that are in the description. I really mean it when I say there's a lot to get through. So let's dive right in. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create our background. So Command or Control N to create a new composition. We're just going to call this BG for background. 1920 by 1080. I'm going to go 30 frames per second, and then I'm going to make this 14 frames and just click OK. Now I got this metal texture from one of my affiliates, Envato Elements. Right now they're running a special, 7 free days of Envato Elements. Links in the description below. I highly recommend you check it out. I want to create this kind of flashing background to get our film look. And the way we do that is every 2 frames, I'm going to split the layer and then move my background. So just split at this frame, which is 4, go to 6, split. Maybe we'll go this direction. You want to look as random as possible. You don't really want to be cohesive or anything that's like really organized. The more random, the better. And then we watch this play back, we can see we get this kind of random kind of flashing effect, which is exactly what we're going for. Now I need to add in a solid, so Command or Control Y for a solid. I already have mine set. It's going to be this hex code AF. Click OK. Now bring that underneath all of our metal textures here. Now let's just select all of our metal textures, T for opacity, and bring those down to about 65%. We just want to be a little bit, actually, maybe we'll go 50%, just a little bit lighter. Okay, so now we need to create our image pre-comp. So Command or Control N for a new composition. We'll call this image 1. Okay, now the reason I like to pre-comp these images is because you can swap out the images super quick. I'm going to use images of my wife. This is what I used in my music video. And this tutorial is in relation to that music video as I promised in my last announcement. So you can put in whatever images you want. By pre-comping the images, it makes it so much easier just to swap them out. This is my first image here. I'm just going to bring up my scale and position to fill up the comp here. So that way it looks just like this. You want to make sure that the entire comp is filled up. So now I need to create that film strip. So right click in this area to the left of your timeline. Go to New, Shape Layer. So open that up, and we want to add in several things. First, we want to add in a rectangle. We want to add in a stroke, and we want to add in a repeater. So to start from top to bottom, we'll just open all of this up here. Maybe I'll pull this up so we can see everything. Okay, so first, our rectangle path. Let's change our size settings to 250, 200. We're going to change the color to black. And then for our repeater, we want to make 6 copies of our repeater, and then open up the transform settings for your repeater. And it always defaults to 100 pixels on the X, 0 on the Y. Let's change that to 0 and then 200 on the Y. The reason why I'm going to go 200 is because notice our rectangle path size is also 200. So this will offset our rectangles perfectly. So it's just like that. And we need to actually fatten this up a little bit. So our stroke width is 2. Let's make that actually 75. So now we have this film strip here. Also need to add in a fill. So let's go up here and add in a fill, and make sure your fill goes underneath your stroke. So let's just close this stuff up here. Bring the fill underneath the stroke, change that red to a white, and go down to our fill opacity and make this opacity, we'll say maybe 40%. So it's just a little bit lighter. You can kind of see through it. Okay, so let's just bring up our position on this film strip, and we're going to move it over so that way it's over here to the side, but we also want to be somewhat in the center vertically. Okay, and then let's just make a copy of this. So Command or Control D to duplicate. And then we have our position pulled up on this shape layer. So just move that one over to the other side. Okay, one last thing I'm going to do here is if you select this image here and go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, it will put the adjustment layer above your image. Okay, let's go to our effects and presets, and we want to type in Fast Box for Fast Box Blur. Change our blur radius to 8, and we want to repeat those edge pixels. Let's go up to our shape creation tool, make sure you have the rectangle tool, and just put a rectangle around the film strips so that way the only thing that's being blurred out is within these film strips. Okay, so that's perfect. And let's make sure we have this set to the right length. We want to make sure this duration is actually 5 seconds long. So click OK, and then make sure you just stretch this out all the way to the very end. So you can select all of these, go down to the very end, Alt Option, right bracket to pull those all the way over. Okay, so there's our first image. So now we need to create our main composition. So Command or Control N to create a new composition, and we'll call this main Precomp. And 1920 1080, 30 frames, but we want to make this one 15 seconds long. So click OK. All right, so now we can bring in our background. And first, let's go ahead and kind of tweak this background. So we want this to stretch for the entire duration of this 15 seconds. So let's right click on this, go to Time, Enable Time Remap. And notice how you have these 2 keyframes that get put in there automatically for you. Well, now you can stretch this all the way out. Go down to this last keyframe, you'll notice it goes black. So what we need to do is go 1 frame before the last frame, put another keyframe there, and then delete this last one. So basically, we're just going to be using these frames right here. Now, Alt Option, click on Time Remap, Loop Out, and then if you watch it play back, you can see it does that flashing kind of background forever. Okay, so let's bring in our first image. We have this image 1 here. Let's put that right on top. And then now I need to add in some effects to kind of get this the look that we want. So first, let's go and type in tint. Just drop that right in there to make it black and white. Then we want to add in a curves. And we're looking for color correction curve. So it's this one right here. Double click that. And now I'm going to pull this up so you can see a little bit better. And I'm just going to kind of give it some contrasty punch and kind of up the brightness like that. Okay, so now in order to get this to move the way that you saw in the example, I used an effect called offset. So let's type in offset and double click to add that. So the way offset works, I'm going to close up these other effects here. Notice that our shift center to is at 960 by 540. It puts the center of this effect into the center of the size of your comp. So this image 1 Precomp is 1920 by 1080. The way that this offset will be spinning is going to be relative only to the Y value. So let's put a keyframe at the very beginning of our animation, hit U to bring up our keyframes, shift page down 1, 2, 3, go forward 30 frames. We need to move in increments of 1080 because our comp is 1920 by 1080. If you just type in plus 1080, that will make this go 1 rotation. As you can see, if we scrub through this, it goes just 1 rotation. Well, if you want to go through 2 rotations, then we just add in another plus 1080 like that. And we have 2 rotations like that. Now that movement's a little bit boring, so let's just kind of mess with these keyframes. Go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. And then if you type Shift F3, it goes to our graph editor and just pull this handle all the way to the left. One of the things I like to do too is add in some motion blur. If you add in motion blur here, you won't get anything. That's because the movement is coming from this offset. So it's not actually moving because of the position or scale. It's moving because of this effect. But there's a way to work around that. So if we go back to our effects and presets, CC Force, and add in a CC Force motion blur, now we will get some motion blur that's added to this. So whenever you use offset, make sure you add in CC Force motion blur in order to get the motion blur that you're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and set this to quarter quality so that way it moves through a little bit quicker. I want to kind of play around with some of these keyframes. I'm going to pull this a little bit closer together, and this is all personal preference. There is nothing on here that's set in stone. It's just based on the way that you like things to look. So I'm going to put another keyframe for shift to center, go forward a little bit. Now maybe I want to go back in the opposite direction. So right now our Y value is 2700. I'm going to go minus 1080 just to go back up 1 rotation. So that way it'll kind of go back up like that. And then maybe we'll do one more sizable move, go forward a little bit, plus 1080, plus 1080 to go forward 1080 twice. So we watch this play back. Okay, and again, you can play around with these keyframes. Maybe you want to make these easy ease on your graph editor. You know, just kind of play around with how you want these to animate in. Again, there's no set rules for this. You can kind of just play around with this. Honestly, I made mine just completely random. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do actually is we'll put this last animation at about 3 seconds and 15 frames, and we'll make that start there, okay? So let's make some more changes to this layer. Hit P for position, and we're going to put a wiggle expression on our position. We're going to say wiggle 2,20. So that way we get this movement where it just kind of bounces around like that. But now notice how our comp, whenever it's sitting still, it kind of has these edges. So to fix that, we want to go to our effects and presets, motion tile, add in motion tile, and then we want to mirror our edges, output width and height to 125. So we kind of have that kind of a movement. Okay, and maybe we want to go even faster. So we'll say wiggle 320 to really kind of give it that shake. Maybe we'll say 315. You know, just kind of play around with these settings to see what it is that works for your aesthetic. Let's duplicate image 1. So now we have 2 images like that. Hit U to bring up our keyframe. And now let's move this second one down so that way this keyframe here on image 1, the bottom one, is lined up with this image. Now you want the number of rotations between these 2 keyframes to be the same number of rotations between these 2 and in the same direction. So let's take a look at this. This keyframe here, the offset is 1620. The second one is 3780. So that's 2 full rotations. So now we can go back, click all of these offs and start over from the beginning, right? So we'll make this first keyframe here, 960, 540. And we go for 2 full rotations, which is actually 2160. So that's 1080 plus 1080 is 2160. If we take these keyframes and let's see what we did with that. Okay, so we start off slow, end fast. So we'll do the same thing with this. Make those easy E's. Select this first keyframe, start off slow, end fast. Take this image 1 and hit Command or Control D to duplicate it. And notice how After Effects renames this for you sequentially. So now we have image 2. So all we have to do, we want to keep in our film strip in this adjustment layer. I'm just going to grab a different image. So I'm going to grab this Sheila 2 and holding down Alt or Option, drag that so that way it just goes right on top of the other image. Now I need to resize this because it's a different size from our other image. I want to center it up. And if we go back out to our main pre-comp here, we can see we also need to add in our image 2 pre-comp onto this image 1. So again, holding down Option or Alt, drag image 2 on top of image 1 so it replaces it. I'm going to bring over my layer so it starts about right there, and we want to end the first image about right there. So see, we're moving somewhere in between these 2 keyframes, and at some point you want the second one to pop on, and you can see where it changes right there. But when you watch it play back, it's hard to tell when it actually does it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in some of these like little movements here. So we'll put a keyframe here, go forward a little bit, and maybe we'll go back 1080. So that way it's like, boom, it just goes up 1 time. Maybe we'll go forward 1 long time. So we'll say plus 2160. And that way it's going to really flip through pretty hard for us like that. And I want to take maybe this keyframe, go to our graph editor and just pull that handle over so that way it comes in really fast and ends slowly. And then the same thing that we did for this first transition, we're going to do for this next transition. So go to about the 8-second mark, put a keyframe there and maybe go forward about 10 frames. And we just want to go backwards 1080. So minus 1080 like that. Let's take this image 2 comp, duplicate that. And then let's just pull this down, U to bring up our keyframes. And then if we go to this first keyframe and then click on Shift Center 2, we get rid of all those keyframes. So now remember what we're trying to do is mimic this movement. So that's just 1 full rotation and it goes up. So for our keyframe here, what we can do is put a keyframe for 960 by 540. Go to this next keyframe here and we want to go up or a negative 1080 so that way it goes up. Just click on those. Keyframe Assistant, easy ease. And then let's make our image 3 comp. So just take this image 2, duplicate. Now we have image 3. Select that image and I'm going to pull in a different image of my gorgeous wife. And the one I've selected is attachment 2 here. So we'll bring that right in like that. P and S to adjust our position and scale. And again, I'm going to have to kind of resize this to get the look that I'm going for here. And so once you have these image pre-comps, like I said, it's super easy to change out whatever image you want. You just do that and all the effects will be applied to it. So let's go back out to our main pre-comp here and we're going to select this top image 2. Now select our image 3 up here and holding down Alt or Option, drag it so that way it overwrites that and see how it pops right on. Hit U to bring over keyframes and again, we're going to move the beginning of this layer over and the end of this layer over so that way somewhere in the middle it's going to intersect. And see how they both go up. So maybe we'll go plus 1080. So always you're going to go plus and minus 1080 constantly. That's how this is going to move. And actually, I want to go another 1080, minus another 1080. Okay, and then maybe this last one, I'll put a keyframe, go forward a little bit, and now I'm going to go plus 1080 plus 2160. That way it's going to be 3 rotations. I can't do the math in my head that quickly, so for me it's easier just to add 1080, add 1080, add 1080. Okay, so that's the basic look that we're kind of going for. Okay, so I'm going to loop this so that way it ends about right there. But then now adding in a bunch of little things to really kind of give it a really, really cool look. So we're going to do that real quick. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of our animation. We go new adjustment layer, and then we want to go to our effects and presets and type in fast box for fast box blur. Set that to 15. Repeat our edge pixels. Now this is a trick I've done before too. If you just want to add in some like quick flashes of things, and this is throughout the entire video that I created, and just make this like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. So as you're playing it, you kind of get these like little blips of blur. So just kind of like that, and just randomly place these throughout your composition. Make them shorter or longer. You can, it's really up to you how long you want the blur to last and exactly what it is you want to do with it. So I like to kind of add these in and make it as random as possible depending on how you want it to look. So this is no rules, just completely up to you. So those are our blurs. And then another thing that I did was add in little splotches of color. So let's do a new adjustment layer. And actually, I'm going to just grab these. I'm going to make this a certain color. We'll make that yellow. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it real quick just so that way it satisfies my OCD. These are all blur layers. Okay. And now I'm going to make this a color layer. And let's say I'll make this, we'll say orange. Okay. So make the color layer, go to effects and presets, hue for hue and saturation. Then we're going to colorize it, increase our color saturation all the way up to 100. And again, we're just going to kind of do these like little 5-frame little color things, and you want to randomize this. So you can adjust your color hue, like maybe you don't want the color to be quite 100. You can make the color saturation, 50 to kind of give it a little bit of a different look. Again, just things that you can do to kind of add something a little bit unique and different to your animations. And just kind of add these throughout the entire thing like that. Maybe add in a couple more. Like I said, completely random colors and just kind of sporadically in different durations. We'll see. We'll make this one 150 just to kind of get something a little bit different. Decreases color saturation just a bit much. We'll make that 50% also. So we're kind of starting to get this like really cool collection of these like little effects. It really kind of gives it something that looks really, really cool. But I'm still not done yet because I want to add in a few more things. So now let's go to layer, new adjustment layer, and we're going to call this comp blur. Take our ellipse tool, double click, and then we want to go to our effects and presets, fast box for fast box blur. We want to make that 10 and repeat edge pixels, and then make this mask subtract. And we want to feather this out. We'll say 250 and just kind of bring these handles in, because what we're trying to do is just kind of get this kind of blurring around the edges. You don't really want it to be perfect. You want to kind of have a damaged kind of look. And then let's add in a few more things. So layer, new adjustment layer, and we can call this vignette. And we can just super quick go to effects and presets, type in CC vignette. And that adds in a vignette for us. Okay, and then let's add in another adjustment layer. So new adjustment layer. And let's look for Tritone and add in a Tritone. And then let's blend with original, maybe 35%. So we kind of get this old school look. And there's one more effect that I did that I think is really cool that I've not shown you yet. So go to layer, new adjustment layer, and we're going to call this film burn. And this one is really cool. Go to your effects and presets and type in burn, you get CC burn film. Okay, so now the way this is going to work is as you increase the burn amount, you can see how it kind of starts to burn. Well, what I did, which I thought was really cool, is you can move the center of the burn all around your comp here. And the thing that's going to animate it is actually this random seed. So Option Alt click on random seed, and you want to type in time times 10. So that way you kind of get this where the burn, you can kind of see it kind of moving like that. And again, like with the other effects, what we're going to do is just do these like little, maybe 5-frame little snippets in here. And you want to make sure that you move it around every time. So when it rests here, bring the center of your burn film, somewhere else. You can increase the burn amount. Maybe you want to put it down to like 8. Just so you kind of get these imperfections. That's really what we're looking for, is like these imperfections to kind of give it that old school film, kind of like there's something wrong with it, just something that's like not quite right, and kind of spread these out a little bit. So you can make it a little bit bigger, and you can actually do something like this. You can keyframe the burn from 25, maybe go for 10 frames down to like 10, and then chop that off. So you have something kind of like, like that. So I'm going to make all these the same color. We'll say red. And then there's one more thing I want to do. Just one last thing. New solid. We want to make this white. And we want to set this layer to overlay. And like with the other ones, we're going to do just these quick little 5 to 10 frame little segments here. So throughout we'll have just little kind of flare-ups like that. Let's take our images here, bring up our opacity, and let's just lower this down to about 65. So that way we get that background that comes through. So see, now we have this old school kind of look. I think it looks pretty cool. You can always add in more things. For example, if you wanted to go up here to, we'll call this CC for color correction. This is where we added our tritone. Maybe you want to add in another curves to really give it some punch. So that way we really kind of has some more contrast, but we can still see the background. So see, now as you play it back, you get all these like little imperfections. Maybe you want to increase them. Maybe you want to lower them. Just something that kind of gives this something that looks cool and unique and different and unexpected. Now I'll put a lot of effects in here. You may want to use about half of these, or maybe about 3/4 of these. So that way it's not quite so much. But this is the effect that I used throughout the entire music video, with that background that kind of flashes in and out, and the color overlays and things like that. And that's how you make this effect that I used in my music video for Insomniac. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure that you check it out. The link for that video is in the description below. I'd like to thank the good folks over at AE Juice for sponsoring this video. If you haven't checked them out at aejuice.com, I highly recommend you do just that right now. Get tons of free plugins from AE Juice that will save time while adding polish and professionalism to your projects. Get the AE Juice Starter Pack, which contains over 100 assets for your projects, including liquid and shape elements, liquid transitions, slides for your slideshows, text presets, flat icons, 2D and 3D assets, and so much more. AE Juice also offers professionally produced sound effects absolutely free. Other free plugins include a HUD package that is super cool. These elements would literally take hours to create, but with AE Juice, you get them absolutely free, and they can be dropped into your project with the click of a button. Some of my personal favorite free plugins include Copy Ease, which allows you to copy the speed graph of your keyframes and paste them so you get identical keyframe speeds. I also use Shifter on a regular basis. Instead of going through the multiple steps of offsetting layers, this plugin allows you to do it with the click of a button, which saves a tremendous amount of time. In addition to these impressive free plugins, you can also purchase advanced products at more than reasonable prices. Take advantage of AE Juice's bundles. My personal recommendation is that you get the I Want It All bundle, which includes everything I just showed you. I've been approached by several sponsors, and I will not promote their products unless I support them, use them, and highly recommend them. AE Juice is an amazing product and company, and in my opinion, it's a necessity for any serious motion graphic designer. aejuice.com. I hope this tutorial helped you out and that you learned something new and useful. Make sure to come back next time for another tutorial that will expand your knowledge of After Effects while also teaching you some really cool tips, tricks, and shortcuts. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Support our channel by getting your 7-minute AE merch today at our online store. And sign up for my Udemy course, The Power of Shape Layers, is guaranteed to make you a Shape Layer Rockstar. The link to that course, to our 7-minute AE store, and the project files for this episode are all in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.